Have you ever had a crush on someone who turned out to be a major butthole? In middle school I sat next to him in one class and had my locker right next to his. We talked a lot and I really liked him. One day I was at my locker and was blocking him from getting to his, but just because they are just too close really. He got mad and slammed my head into the lockers. I suddenly no longer had a crush on him. Yo WTF. In high school I was at a party with my crush. We had a flirty almost kinda relationship all through school. He ran out of credit on his phone. Shows how old I am. So I'll let him use mine. The next day I saw he had used my phone to text another girl and ask her out lol. Yes, she told me she'd be happy to date me, even marry me. In order for that to happen, I had to make a minimum 65k a year and provide 2 vacations a year. I was also expected to pay all of the bills and let her keep any money she made to herself. Crush ended. It sounds like she wanted you to adopt her. I used to have this big crush on this girl. I was so into her, I sometimes couldn't sleep at night. Later on in the school year, I went to a party with some friends. Everyone was pretty hammered and then out of the blue she started cursing me out because she thought I stole her jewel. When I woke up the next morning I went and asked her about it. She said frick off and I left the house. Haven't talked to her since that party and it's been a few months. Don't ever plan on it. That's sad dude. She sounds pretty irrational. Holy crap. I had a huge crush on this popular class clown type back in high school. He would sometimes make sexual comments about me to his friends and to my face, but I was purely flattered because I was young, dumb, and infatuated. I thought he liked me, so I asked him to homecoming with a surprise bowl of popcorn with a note in it. It included a cheesy joke, my number and name. I left it at his seat because he had that class right after me. About 15 minutes after leaving I get a text saying yes and I'm elated. But the texts start to seem off to me as more messages are sent. It seems ironic. Turns out he got his friend to frick with me over text. He later posted the note, including my number on his Twitter and spelled out no with the popcorn kernels and posted that, and made fun of me every time he saw me. It really ruined my self-esteem for the rest of high school and I hope he ends up a sad divorce guy whose wife took all his money and the kids. He's a dong. Like who goes to such lengths to reject someone, stooping as low as public humiliation, when you can just be like lol no thanks? Before I did it I thought worst case scenario is he answers with who are you or no are ugly and weird or some crap and then laughs about it with his friends. But it ended up worse than worst case. I was head over heels for this dude when I was in 8th grade. Looking back we were actually a lot closer friends than I thought we were at the time. I think he was embarrassed of me because I was a kinda goth dork and he was one of the popular swag guys, as one would say in 2012. So he pretty much only hung out me in one class. One night we were talking and he keeps asking me to send nudes. I didn't feel pressured at all BC, I was super thirsty, but I didn't know if he was joking. So I kept asking if he was joking to make sure before I sent them. After I sent them he was acting sweet to me. Suddenly the next day when I brought it up, he had no idea what I was talking about. He showed me screenshots of our last conversation before the nudes thing, saying those were the last messages he had from me. I started panicking when he told me our mutual friend, creepy dude, called or hacked him last night, but he reassured me that I wouldn't send them to anyone or anything like that. The guy I had a crush on even was like WTF why did you send me nudes, like judging me and crap. I realized he was lying shortly after when I remembered I was also texting his phone that night. Aside from talking on Messenger, saying things that were relevant to our other convo. Dang, that's straight gaslighting, I'm so sorry. Yes, he was really attentive and kind before we started dating. I got a crush on him. Also very nice guy-ish. Turned out to be a manipulative, gaslighting butthole. One of the best decisions in my life was to cut contact with this butthole who blamed me for giving him an STD. I didn't have any. Got tested, but he demanded a public apology and my apologies to his other partners. Didn't even know he had more than one partner. It was wild. Yeah, you don't need that. In any relationship that isn't acceptable. But dang, that is a wild story. I think those women had it coming from Cosby. They thought Hollywood was the high life and could get away with it all. I skipped the zopt with the zippity bop out of there and the idea of any type of relationship died right there. These are the stories I came here for. Real honest buttholes. Instead, half these stories are just people being awkward, not acting on their feelings, and not taking hints. And if you ask the other party, the story would be very different. Funny story. There was a girl I crushed on hard in high school. We'll call her Anne. She was seeing someone at the time, so I never tried talking to her and went about my life dating other people. There was also this super preppy popular girl that I found physically attractive. We'll call her Beth, but the way she carried herself and the people she hung around with made me hate her. Fast forward 3-4 years after high school and I'm newly single doing the whole partying and trying to hook up with people thing. During this time I started playing games online with Anne, but she lived a few states away. But one night I go to a party and run into Beth. We start talking, having some drinks. One thing led to another and I end up at her place. Over the next couple months we start going to parties together, hiking, camping, and just hanging out, and I come to find out that the perception of her I originally had was completely wrong. She was extremely sweet, easy to get along with, and just a fun person. I was still seeing other people while we were hanging out, and so was she, so I never thought of it as anything more than friends that frick every once in a while. We hang out with each other for 3-4 months and turns out that Anne is moving back to our hometown. We meet up when she gets back. We hang out a few times and decide to start dating, make it official. Next time I go to hang out with Beth, I'll let her know we can still hang out, but the sex has to stop since I'm seeing someone. She said she understood and said she wasn't bothered by it. A few weeks go by and Beth calls me one night and tears and says that we can't hang out anymore. She confesses that she had fallen for me, but she thought I didn't want a relationship with anyone at the time, so she never brought it up. I apologize and that's the last time we talk. I was with Anne for 4 years and it was the worst relationship I've been in. She was very manipulative and took advantage of me emotionally and financially. I still think about Beth from time to time, and I see her around town every once in a while but never approach her. She seems happy and I'd rather not bring the thought of me in her head again. TL. DR. Nerdy crush ended up being a piece of crap. Popular girl I used to hate ended up falling in love with me. I was oblivious to it, and she's a great person. This is rom-com flick material. Girl I like turned out to be a pretty big racist. Found out because we went for ice cream and she hid behind me because there was a black dude in the store. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Yes, a girl named Heidi in middle school. I thought she was absolutely gorgeous until she started doing things like getting up and moving to another desk when I would sit near her, or whispering to her friends when I'd walk by, and they'd all giggle in that way girls do when they're trying to get you to notice they're laughing at you, not in a good way. Or she would see me and just go, "You," and they'd laugh, etc. Once she found this weird, skinny eraser thing somebody had in art class, held it up, and said, "Why does this remind me of my name?" like she was trying to say I had a small pecker. It was mortifying. I never tried to hit on her or anything. I had never had the balls to actually say much to her. The story has a somewhat happy ending though, because by the beginning of 11th grade I had outgrown my ugly, dorky fat kid look, learned to dress decently, and played on the varsity football team. One day I'm standing around talking to friends after dismissal and this girl walks up and says, "Hey, do you remember me? 'Cause I remember you," and she kind of laughed like maybe she thought the whole bullying thing should be funny now. It took me a second to recognize her, but I just stared at her like she was gross and said, "Yeah, I remember you," and then I turned my back on her and went back to talking to my friends until she walked away. Boy, you really showed her. He wasn't really a butthole, but I had a crush on one of the youth boys, let's call him P, from my church. Our youth group was small so we were all close and friendly, but he ended up dating another girl from the group, call her G, who actually had just recently moved in town, who I was friends with too, but she didn't know I liked the guy. Anyways, they have been dating for about a couple of months at this point and I kinda just got over him moving on and such. I get a Facebook message from G saying, "P is such a bastard. He's in butthole." I'm like, oh crap, what happened? G. P told me that he only got with me so he could be closer to you. I'm like, Oh crap, for real? But I'm not that type of person, so I'm telling G, how could he do that? He's such a bastard, all that yada yada. But at the same time I was so hurt, or my emotions were going crazy because I didn't know what to feel. So I told G I had to log off. Right before I did, G sent me a message. This isn't GBTW, this is P. Turns out he went onto G's FB account and posed as her to message me because he had found out or heard from someone that I had liked him before. I told him, yay but not anymore, and logged off. Not really an butthole, but not sure why he would pose as my friend and play with me like that. Couple years into their relationship, G had to move and they had a long distance relationship, but he broke up with her to find God. Then posted her in a relationship status a week later with a girl he worked with. Yep. The first guy I kissed. So my friend and I had crushes on these two boys that were cousins. They both invited us on a double date and we went to the movies. The date was going well. We were holding hands and he kissed me halfway through the movie. Everything was going great until we got outside and he started to run away from me and they both left very quickly. I didn't think much of it because I had just got my first kiss and I was extremely ecstatic. A few hours later my friend got a text from him saying, I thought I kissed you today, not her. We both went for you and didn't realize it. Tell her I don't want to talk to her. I was heartbroken yet completely turned off from wanting to speak to him again. Few years later on, when we're adults, he slid into my DMs and I reminded him what had happened previously. He laughed and blocked me. This girl I was obsessed with all through high school ended up being one of the biggest R. Kelly defenders on Facebook when the documentary came out. Which is crazy because she was 2 years younger than everybody in her grade and she'd been constantly getting catcalled by the older guys in the neighborhood since she was 12 as far as I know. She also has a child now, so I would think a mother's perspective would immediately demonize someone preying on children. Caught me completely off guard. Just once. He was the new kid at school. Saw him and thought he was cute. So did two of my friends. He ended up dating them. There may have been overlap. You'd think given the fact his girlfriend was my friend. He's treated me somewhat civilly, but nah. Dude had it out for me for some reason. Told a few classmates to lock me in the bathroom. I suspect my friend played a role in that, too. No wonder they gravitated towards each other. Tried tripping me in class. Wanted to turn my friend against me. Bragged about destroying our friendship. A favor he did me. TBH. He was just overall unpleasant with me specifically. Needless to say, the crush was swiftly extinguished. Yes, I have. Let's call him L. I liked him for months. I cried over him. I worried to my friends about him. Then, when I had the courage to ask him out, I did. Probably the best decision of my life looking at it logically. He rejected me and later told most of the school. I thought this was going to be a Death Note fanfic. Yeah, spent way too much time thinking about him, talking about him, trying too hard to impress him. Time I'll never get back. Don't feel bad. I'm a guy and I can definitely say this kind of thing happens to us, too. A story from the other perspective. Met a girl through mutual friends. We hit it off immediately. After a while I realized I was quickly falling for her. I know she was falling for me just as hard, so we just let it happen. Fast forward a few months and her mom was getting very sick and she had to move away to help her out. All of a sudden she says her mom is fine and she's going to stay. I knew she was lying and most likely abandoning her mom to stay with me, so I tried to pull the long distance card. Staying friends and anything I could think of. She admitted her mom was still sick but wanted to stay. So I told her something that made her hate me. I attacked her insecurities and said I played her from the start for sex. I was definitely the butthole. I actually feel bad for the girl. Me, being emotional, almost cried. Yep, told him his smile looks cute. Sorry, but the farthest thing we can go is to be friends. Proceeds to block me seconds after the message. I can relate. Yay. Some chick I knew in middle school. She was my style and she seemed pretty cool. People didn't like her because she was so open about how she had self-harmed and attempted, but it made me all the more interested in her. Probably the confidence she showed. Anyways, Nothing really happens. Some mutual flirting but nothing comes of it. We end up going to the same high school and we don't really talk until one of her best friends transfers. We start talking again and play some Xbox every now and again. That was a big yes from me. And the flirting starts up again. This time it actually turns into a confession and I'm like, heck yay. Fast forward a day or two and my friends obviously I ask why and apparently she's an absolute crap bag. Apparently she went from one dude to another, not sure for money or what, and she especially went for the emotionally vulnerable aka me. Not to mention she'd talk crap and insult anyone who denied her. And you can probably guess I had an oh crap moment but I still didn't want to believe them. But looking back on it, thank God I listened to my friends. Stay safe kids, don't let emotional vulnerability get the best of you. A guy I liked in high school was popular. He somehow found out that someone with my name had a crush on him. Me and my best friend at the time had the same name, so he thought it was her. I had to let him know that it was me, and not her, so people wouldn't tease her anymore. It turns out he showed his friends, and they all started repeating what I wrote to him and making fun of me until I left the classroom crying. Your username checks out. Also, I'm sorry that happened to you. I hope he got his at some point. I once had a crush on a girl who turned out to be a complete and utter B. I am glad I got over my crush on her because she intentionally tried to ruin prom for me later on. I had eventually began to consider her a friend after reconnecting with her through a mutual and eventually our friend group became completely mutual. Fast forward to prom. I am going with one of our mutual friends as each other's dates but each table has a limited number of spaces. Before I know it she is trying to kick me off of the table. Keep in mind I was already going with somebody that would be at the table. When she doesn't get her way she invites my ex who wasn't over me yet who I had broken up with a few months prior. This coupled with the fact that two of the other boys at our table were already fuming because they liked me and I hadn't gone with them didn't help matters. The dinner portion of prom was incredibly awkward because of her actions. She didn't ruin my entire night however and I had a ton of fun on the dance floor and me and the boy I went with have been together for 4 years now. I can say confidently that every girl I have had a crush on has turned out to be a horrible person in the end. Can only say that for about half of the guys though. Yes, we even started dating. 3 years later I'm still battling depression because of the scars a manipulative and toxic mindset left in me. Same for me, dude. Hang in there, you can get through all this crap. A girl who I worked with who got hired in above me and I had a short relationship. We'd meet up after work and smoke, listen to music and talk. It got flirty and I ended kissing her and we ended up sleeping together. And I'm someone who only sleeps with someone if I really like them wanting to date. Well, I find out from someone else, she lives with her boyfriend. She then went on to tell me that they're not really together anymore nor even sleep in the same room. Just can't afford to live on their own. I was trying to be level-headed and understanding yet felt completely betrayed and lied to. A few weeks later she does the we need to talk thing instead of being direct and taking the conversation seriously. Waited hours to response. When she was aware of my anxiety issues, told me she is pregnant. My heart dropped into my stomach, thinking it's mine. Nope, it was his. And she said it happened before we started talking and that they were going to abort it and still wanted to talk to me. It was over the second I heard that. She told her boyfriend after I ghosted her and they still dated a while afterwards. He worked with my cousin who I hung out with regularly at the time. He would invite him over when I was there purposely, and he would only show up with 3-4 friends who would all try to start crap and fight, which I never engaged because I know I'd just get jumped. I was anxiety ridden for months and even tried to explain myself to the boyfriend, who blocked me and wouldn't say a word by himself. I don't talk to my cousin anymore and the last time I heard of her was she got pregnant and moved to Indiana with some other guy. Worst relationship experience ever. Back when I was a junior in high school, I, fat awkward bunkover, was falling in love with my 2 best friends, who were girls. I didn't know if either of them liked me back, but I was willing to go out on a limb because I thought it was time to grow a backbone and ask someone out. Let's call them Helen and Ronette. Helen being a good Christian girl, and Ronette being a slightly less good Christian girl. I figured Helen would never go for a street rat like me, and I asked Ronette out, or, more accurately, confessed my love to her in a Facebook message and then wrote her a letter, because I was awful at this. Ronette conceded to a date with me, but after 2 dates a couple of things became clear. Ronette did not feel the same way about me that I felt about her. B. Helen did. By this point, Helen was already dating some other guy, but making it perfectly clear to me that if I had asked her out, she would have said yes. Ronette and I sort of carried on a will they or won't they thing for a few months, where I kept chickening out of grand romantic gestures, and she kept waffling about whether or not it was better for her self-esteem to keep me around. It was awful and cringy for everyone involved, and when we finally, definitively broke up, after many smaller breakups and confessions from both sides, it led to a falling out in our relationship. For a good chunk of the time that Ronette and I were broken up but not quite done, Ronette was dating a hotter version of me, by her own admission, who was very jealous of me, as was Helen's boyfriend, who had figured out that she was actually into me. I remember telling Ronette that I had made the choice to ask her out over Helen, and that I thought we really had a shot. Ronette just told me I was an idiot and that I obviously belonged with Helen, but she's happy with her boyfriend. Anyway, eventually Helen's boyfriend dumped her, and Helen and I started dating. Within weeks she shed her skin to reveal a racist, hypocritical, emotionally and sexually manipulative ball of psychotic jealousy, and I, having had a crush on her for years now and having looked up to her as the good Christian girl, just went along with it because I didn't know any better. It took her cheating on me before I snapped out of it. Ronette and I eventually apologized to each other after maturing and were good friends again. Helen and I, not so much. TLDR, had crushes on 2 a-holes at once. Dated both of them, only one grew out of it. Had a huge crush on a guy I worked with in high school. He left me a note one day to come to his house because he and his friends were getting together to watch Surf Ninjas. I was so excited, went over, sat next to him on the floor in front of the couch, and we proceeded to not speak to each other the entire evening. Afterward, the group went to hang out somewhere else, and I felt so awkward that I just drove home instead. Flash forward, 10 years later, with a new friend at Barnes & Noble, I see that guy on the escalator. I tell her, that guy was sort of my first date. She says, no way, he was my first date. I ask what they did on their first date, eager to recount my laughably sad ordeal, when she told me she had gone to his house to watch Surf Ninjas with him and his friends. She sat near him on the floor and he didn't speak to her the entire time, so she left afterward. We quickly confirmed the approximate date and other people who had been there. The butthole double booked himself and opted to speak to neither of us, successfully evading detection for a decade. I know this is like an eye roll story, but I'm so bummed this didn't turn out to be a story about an awkward guy who gets all his friends together to watch Surf Ninjas every time he wants to date a girl, but never works up the nerve to talk to the girl. I had a crush on high school on the local bad boy. He was handsome, cool and took crap from no one. I dreamed about our life together. It was like the song Just My Imagination, but I'm a girl in love with a boy. Wind forward 3 years. He beat up his ex-girlfriend and killed her new boyfriend with an axe. Freshman year of high school I had a crush on this boy. He came in from a small private school, so he was kind of sheltered. He was smart and kind of nerdy. He was a good athlete and good looking, so he started becoming popular. He turned into a douche bro. 6th grade. Had a massive crush on this one kid who I also sat next to. Anyway, he asked me to elaborate on something, and in the middle of explaining it to him, he told me to shut up already. Hated him ever since. Jordan. That was straight up rude. Once had a crush on a co-worker who made fun of another co-worker for having a panic attack while they were having a panic attack and had a miscarriage because she took too much ecstasy. She was nice to me though. Still kinda miss her TBH. What? Most definitely, had a crush on him for years, but he was older than me, so he was nice enough to actually reject my feelings on my 18th birthday, but we just became good friends. One day I told him that I was raped and just wanted to talk, and he ghosted me. Yes, I had a huge crush on a girl when I was in 7th grade. I thought she was the prettiest girl in class. I was kind of new to Snapchat, This is important to the story. So we were talking on Snapchat and she sent me a picture of herself and I took a screenshot. I didn't know that she would be able to see that I took a screenshot. She started asking me why I did it and I didn't know what to say. I made her promise not to tell anyone what I was going to tell her. So I told her that I had a huge crush on her. She took a screenshot of the chat and sent it to her friends. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.